Hey, everybody. Welcome to another movie podcast. What would you change? We are the Super Monkey Fighters. I am Loki here with Monkey Feathers and Papa Nugget. Um, it's the holiday season still, again, for the first time. We don't know. We'll see. I mean, it's certainly not the first holiday season, but it's probably our first holiday season. At least
yes, because we were born
so.
yesterday. We were
Yes.
born yesterday.
Much like Buddy in the movie Elf, yes, we are infantile and childlike in our understanding of the world. And by that, I mean, we watched Elf. It's a fantastic movie from 2003 starring Will Ferrell, James Caan, Bob Newhart, Mary Steenburgen, Ed Asner, Zooey Deschanel, Daniel Tay, Faison Love, Peter Dinklage, Amy Sedaris, Michael Lerner, Andy Richter, and Kyle Gass show up in there. Artie Lang is in it for a few minutes as a violent Santa Claus. Was directed by Jon Favreau, who you will all know now as the director of Iron Man and The Mandalorian. But before that, he did movies like this, and before this, he did movies like Swingers, which is a fantastic indie film from the 90s that is full of profanity. And my mother was very shocked when we watched it. So, it's also written by David Berenbaum. It is the story of a human child who was stolen by Santa.
Yes.
Inadvertently. I'm going to go with stolen, even though
Yes.
he's in an orphanage and he crawls into Santa's sack. So, but after discovering he's human, being raised by elves at the North Pole, he decides to travel to New York to meet his real father, who is James Caan. And if you haven't figured out, Will Ferrell is Buddy the Elf. I don't have high praise for this film. I do appreciate a lot of the people in it. I just think that it's lesser than the sum of its parts, let's say. So, but before we get into my thoughts, let's get into everybody else's thoughts. What do you guys think?
I only say that because with a lot of Will Ferrell and his comedic characters, I can only handle so much of it. But I will say that with this movie, casting Will Ferrell as Buddy and him portraying the childlike demeanor of an adult who is now in New York City, I think was a good choice, especially when seeing that the original casting choice was going to be Jim Carrey when it was first concepted. So I think that if Jim Carrey was in this movie, it would have been a different movie and a different just everything. So I did like that they cast Will Ferrell in this because I think his personality and the way that he handles acting and things like that did help to sell the character of Buddy more than I think Jim Carrey would have. So that was something that I did like.
I kind of want to see that though. Now. that may be a better movie.
It probably would be
version.
the Jim Carrey version. It would certainly have more faces and less oblivious interactions with other characters who were obviously not having a conversation with the same person. So
yeah,
it's an interesting thought to think who would have been different. Like, would Shrek have been as popular if
Mike
Chris
Myers
Farley? If it was because it was written for Chris Farley, and then Mike Myers, when he first read it, and his first response was, "You guys wrote this for Chris Farley." So, but would it have been as big of a success if it had been, or would it have been, how would it have all been different? So, interesting to think of with all those kinds of things. So, Nuggets, what did you think about it?
It's kind of middle of the road for me. I mean, you have to say, like, I was trying to figure out where or what kind of spot this movie was trying to fill. It's a PG film, so, I mean, there's only so much you can do. So it's definitely trying to be a family film, at least something that kind of can appeal to everyone. And I think for that, it does an okay job. I think there's adult humor. There's stuff kids can find funny.
There is. So rewatching this, there's one point in the movie that I laughed at, and I don't remember what that was. And there was another part that I thought there's literally just one part that I actually laughed at. And then there was another part that I was like, that's really clever, but I don't think, or I should say, it would have been a much better joke if they had done it slightly differently. So when Buddy's sitting in the office with his dad as like actual businessman, and he's sitting in the corner reading a kid's book because his father is a children's book publisher. The book that he's reading is a children's version of Pygmalion, which is definitely not a children's book. But I think it's one of those jokes. It's not here's the joke for the adults kind of a thing. It's like, here's the joke for the AP English nerd kids, right?
Yeah.
And I think if they'd have chosen something like Lord of the Flies or Animal Farm, which I'm sure there are actually children's versions of Animal Farm, like, something that's a little bit more recognizable, I think that would have landed a little bit better. I'm sure it's something I noticed in the past watching this movie, but just forget about it. So. And that's what you're saying. That's kind of how I feel, where it's like, I don't know where this fit, right? Like the opening sequence, it's like, okay, are you trying to be a Christmas classic, or are you trying to make fun of Christmas classics? Being the family comedy, the PG comedy is, but having it made by more adult comedians, and not that they are adults, but they have more of an adult flair in their comedy, where it's more blue and it's more crude than what is in this. I just think it doesn't match either way. So
then, Nugget, what would you say is something you liked about it?
That it had Bob Newhart in it. I thought he played a great Papa Elf.
Yeah. I think he's was a very good casting choice. I do think that there was some poor casting choices, but I think he was one of the really good ones. It just in general, I think you could just watch him talk and be entertained.
Yeah.
So,
I thought the story was pretty straightforward. There wasn't really it's easy to follow. No crazy turns throughout it. It's pretty linear. I like that they tried to kind of incorporate the animated characters or character feel of the traditional is it Rankin Bass Christmas shows? Rankin?
Sure.
Basically the stop motion shows that most people are probably familiar with. And the thing that was funny to me is with how he set off on his journey to New York. like here's a snow globe. Climb aboard this floating piece of ice and good luck.
Yeah. And that's one of those early on moments where you're like, okay, this is going to be a really good send off of these kinds of movies. But then from that point on, it's like, nope, this is that Christmas movie. Like, it's not making fun of it anymore. It's just become that. So yeah, the narwhal coming out was great.
Yeah. Outside of that, that's I don't know. I feel weird about this one because I don't hate it. It kept my attention, made me laugh or chuckle a couple times, but I don't have a strong desire to watch it again.
Just that statement. I don't have a strong desire to see it again. I'm good. Yeah. Once is enough. So, Loki, what would you say you liked about it?
I did like that really over the top joke that probably a few people got. I did like Bob Newhart. I do like most of the casting choices. I think they all play their parts very well. For the most part, I think I would have much rather seen Jim Carrey in this role than Will Ferrell. I think it would have had potentially, well, maybe, I don't know.
But
Thinking through the time period,
could he really have pulled off the childish demeanor as well as Will Ferrell?
I think he wouldn't have done the childish demeanor, but I think that's one of the things I would change about this is it seems strange to me that just because the elves are not children, the elves are adults.
Yeah.
And they have a normal adult society. So there's no reason why he would grow up to be a child man. They kind of make it seem like, oh, well, he was an elf. He grew up at the North Pole. That's why he doesn't, like he wouldn't know the goings on of the world, but he wouldn't
act like that.
Like he was 8. And I think you could easily portray a sense of Christmas, wonder and magic without being 8. I did like kind of some of the standard Jon Favreau, especially for the time period, like Phase on Love showing up. And just, I think that they played the parts over the top because that's what the movie needed. Even Peter Dinklage, who shows up for a scene that's strange because I was introduced to Peter Dinklage, a film that came out the same year in 2003 called The Station Agent. And he's fantastic and amazing in it. And I don't remember him in this because I saw it so long ago. Like, it just didn't connect. But I think if this was my introduction to Peter Dinklage, I would have a much different feeling on him. So it was kind of... that didn't land well for me. It's hard for me to find things that really stood out and that I liked. Like the Holiday Village stuff, the North Pole stuff, that was interesting, but it's a very small part of it. And it's used more for gags at the beginning, and then it's just kind of whatever. So I probably have more I don't like about this than I do like. So,
well, what would you say that you don't like?
I honestly don't like Will Ferrell in this role. I think, like I said, the film comes out to be lesser than the sum of its parts. I don't like James Caan as his dad.
Yeah, that fell flat for me.
It's the tough guy who can't. I don't think he has quite the comedic chops. Whereas Step Brothers, I can't think of his name, as his dad. He has the same level of anger and rage, but it's more comedic. Where there are times where I just thought, "Whoa, great! Will Ferrell's going to get stabbed by James Caan in this movie," and that'd be an interesting twist. That
plot twist.
I don't like it's the standard story template where it's, oh, now he's bad, and he's on the naughty list, and now he's on the good list, just like that. And it's just those situations that get written into stories that aren't plausible and realistic. But
it makes you feel good in the end. Don't you want to feel good?
But there also wasn't really anything that happened to precipitate it. Like, he's already made the decision to abandon his family on Christmas Eve and work. And then his son shows up and is just like, "You suck." And he's like, "You know what? I do suck." And away he goes. And now I'm going to not suck.
Yeah. And, now I'm off the
those kinds of things. Or the love story that blossoms because of his weird whimsy, where you just normally you'd look at the guy and be like, "Ha ha ha, that's funny." Now let's where's the reality behind it, right? As soon as you see that there's not a sane person there, you're gonna back away. And it's not a movie about the story, it's a movie about the gimmicks. And when Buddy's in the North Pole, he's not as good as the other elves because he's a human, but then when he's in New York, he's better than the humans because he was raised by elves. He's got superhuman snowball throwing abilities. He can he's more productive than anyone else at doing his work, those kinds of things.
Now, to be honest, did you enjoy the snowball throwing scene?
No, I didn't really enjoy the snowball.
You didn't even get a chuckle out of it?
I didn't really.
It's worth at least a chuckle. Come on.
Oh, here's the thing. Let's just say that is the part I chuckled at.
Okay.
I don't know. I do know that I laughed.
He doesn't remember.
But I don't remember the part that I laughed at. And there were, like I said, it was just stringing together comedic moments, and I think a lot of it was just, oh, hey, we got Will Ferrell, so here, Will Ferrell, go be Will Ferrell for a bit.
It's like just a series of jokes.
Yeah. I think that everybody involved kind of went on to find, like, this is a good stepping stone, like watching a process. Like, Will Ferrell comedies, they figured out, like, James Caan doesn't work as his angry dad because James Caan is much better angry, dramatic, tough guy actor, where you need to find somebody who can bring that intensity, but is maybe more of a beta kind of a thing. And so I think that they figured that out. I think Jon Favreau figured out a lot more of where he can tell interesting stories, you know, with the Marvel movies and with everything else going on. Strange amount of CGI in it too, like the toy store when he turns around and looks at the toy store and you're like, wow, that's a digital matte painting. It doesn't look like anything that really exists in the world, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, I could probably just keep going on and on about every little thing, but I think that the bigger things that, like, to getting into what I would change, I would have, you know, changed some of the casting on that. I think James Caan and Jim Carrey would have been an interesting play back and forth. I think Will Ferrell and, you know, some other tough guy actor would have been better. It's kind of that era too, where it's like, let's take the tough guy and put him in a comedic role, because that's Meet the Fockers is around that same time period, maybe just a little, you know, a few years earlier. And to me, that doesn't land as well. Like having the straight man, you need the straight man to make the jokes land. Otherwise, everybody's just over the top crazy characters. But when the straight man is a really good, dramatic, tough guy actor, it just doesn't land as well for me. It lands better with things like Arrested Development, or Jason Bateman is the straight man in most of those scenes. It makes everybody else seem more over the top. Or Seinfeld, where there are times where Jerry is the crazy over the top guy, but usually he's the baseline that allows everybody else to be funnier. So
The Nugget, what did you not like?
I don't have a lot of dislikes, but I did write down it's not a movie I'd want to watch too many times.
yeah,
as I said. The one thing I noticed about the North Pole was, why was it all gray? Like, I don't know if the
gray buildings,
like, and all the interiors, like even the tools were gray hanging on the wall, except like the specific things they were trying to, like when they were looking at the sleigh, like the sleigh was red, everything else is gray. Yeah. Like even the tools on the wall. I don't know if it was just to make it stand out, but to me, that doesn't seem like what the North Pole would look like in my head.
The Nightmare Before Christmas is a bit more of what the North Pole.
Yeah, so
bright colors and lights.
Yeah, that would seem a little strange. I would like to see a Jim Carrey version of this. I think that might be more entertaining. But yeah, it's just, as you kind of put it, just a series of jokes that it goes through, and they're not all that funny. Some are, some aren't, but that's really what the movie feels like.
Yeah, it feels like there's a version of this script that was rated R that is absolutely hilarious, but that didn't get made. Yeah. I just remembered, speaking of rated R, the part I laughed at is when he buys his dad a Christmas present because he's in Gimbals. Yeah. And it's for someone special, and it's a negligee. And so that was the part I laughed at when his dad opened that up. Because I had completely forgotten that scene happened because of everything in between. And then when that popped up, I mean, that was the part I laughed at. So snowball fight was not the part.
I did like the machine gun snowballs. I thought it was funny, even though the CGI was really cheesy. But
another thing that I did like is, and they did it for comedic effect, but I think it added to my believing the world a little bit more, is how he just wanders around. So when he's trying to find everything, he goes up the elevator in the Empire State Building and he walks past the office. And it's like, if you've never been there before, that's exactly what you would do. You'd walk past and then stop and be like, oh, wait, I don't need to be here, and go back a little bit. Like, a lot of that was more believable to me. Or every time he gets run over by a taxi, those kinds of things. Like, if you don't know what the rules are, that's kind of what it's going to be. And so I did enjoy that.
Then, Nugget, what would you change?
Jim Carrey, obviously. I'd put Jim Carrey in there. That's all I got. Like, I mean, it's an okay film, but
clearly one that you would not likely watch again.
Yeah.
Or again and again for every Christmas to come.
The thing is, it was weird watching it the second time because, like, I watched through it, it kept my attention. It didn't feel terrible, but when I was done, I was like, I just lost an hour and a half of my life. at the same time. So I don't know. I just feel torn with it.
Yeah. It's one that I delayed watching every opportunity. I was like, oh, I should. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to do anything else. So Feathers, it's your turn.
What I know I didn't like is how overly done his over-friendly nature was, where, hey, it's a raccoon. Do you want a hug? And he hugs a raccoon and it bites him in the neck, or it probably just attacks him. But there's that. Or he's in the elevator and he leaves the elevator, but then he's like, wait, I forgot to give you a hug. No, you didn't. That dude's fine without a hug. Quite frankly, you're going to be in severe trouble if you give him a hug.
And that's one of those things where he doesn't hug every elf that he saw. You know, like the animal one kind of makes sense because in the North Pole, all the animals talk and sing and dance, and he's friends with all of them. But he doesn't go around hugging everyone and being crazy over friendly with all of them when he's an elf. Like, that only happens when he gets to New York. And
I think that if they had taken that down a couple notches, I would have liked it a little bit more, especially when he's introduced to Zooey Deschanel's character, where if they had rewritten the scene where he finds out that she can sing, I would have liked it more.
Because the fact using a fairly rapey song while he's watching her in the shower.
Well, to be honest, he's not watching her. He's sitting on the sinks. But it is just that, she's taking a shower, she's singing, and then he's on the counter singing and singing with her. If they had rewritten that and made it less creepy, I then would have bought in them slowly building up the romantic relationship. Yeah. Because
right after that, he gets into a fight with the Santa Claus and gets a restraining order. So there's nothing but creepy behavior from him. It's not,
So no, that was in the scene that I knew that I would change, because if it was like after hours and he didn't know that she was there because he was building the toy store up to be Christmassy, and she was there doing something else, not taking a shower, which I'm going to throw this out there very interestingly. Does any workplace have a women's locker room that has showers? I've never come across it, so I'm just curious because it seems a real random place for like a retail store to have a locker room with showers.
I look at it the same way I look at quicksand. As a kid, you think growing up, quicksand is going to be a much bigger problem in your life because of movies and TV. And so it's the locker room because, we need to have this scene, so businesses have locker rooms. And it's not outside the realm of possibility that, hey, we've got performers who are going to be changing into uniforms and those kinds of things to where you'd have that. But
my work has
the places I've worked at.
But does your work have a shower in your locker room? That's I don't know. That just was something that threw me off, especially with then how the scene progressed. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, why is there a shower? They explained why she was taking a shower because they shut off the water to her apartment. But like I said, if they rewrote that scene to be different, where they're both there after hours, they don't know that each other's there, she's singing, and then he stumbles upon her, and then they start singing or whatever. Like, I don't know. I don't care how it would be rewritten. But just for him to be very creepily in the same vicinity of her as she's taking a shower.
Yeah. To me, that's one of those situations too, where his childlike, the whimsy is really bad. Because when she points out that she's naked and he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were naked." It's like, you've taken a shower before? Sure. Like, I can imagine that the magical creatures haven't, but you are a human who they would have bathed you and taught you how to bathe yourself.
Well, even in the
so you would understand that when someone's
in the opening
he takes a shower
scene.
in the opening scenes, right? So he should understand that when someone takes a shower, generally they're So those are the kinds of things that you're just like, I think it's not funny.
They're just
to me.
trying to play on the whole notion that even though he's raised by elves, like he's still not quite all there. So they take that leeway to act like this.
Yeah, and that's the thing that kind of takes me out of it a lot, is just that
It's too much of the way.
it's either really mean or it's just not explained, and it's just yeah. And to me, it just doesn't end. Just it's not funny. It didn't land for me. We didn't talk nearly enough about Ed Asner, who was Santa Claus, which I do think it was a great choice for Santa Claus. I think he fit that very well when you see him in the first scene. That you're just like, yep, that would be Santa Claus. Mm-hmm. So I think we should start a petition like the Snyder cut for the DC universe. We should have the Jim Carrey cut of Elf. Let's get that trending.
For 2023, so it's 20 years later.
Yes. The 20-year anniversary remake Elf with Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to get some people behind this.
Or do the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where they replaced Steve McQueen with Leonardo DiCaprio. Just replace Will Ferrell with digitally put Jim Carrey in the film.
Probably make it by 2023, because I'm sure by then the deep fakes will be so good. Probably. It'll be so believable.
Yeah. Somebody get on that. So, but we'll leave you there with deep fakes of Jim Carrey on Will Ferrell's face. Let us know in the comments what you thought of Elf. Please tell us why we're wrong. If it's your favorite movie ever, because I know that those people exist. Unfortunately. But yeah, comments down below, like, comment, subscribe, tell us what movies we should watch next, and we'll catch you next one. Adios.